Let us pray. Almighty God, ruler of heaven and earth, we beseech thee to inspire and guide all our counsels and actions, so that we may always walk in the path of justice, love, and charity to one another. Help us with thy grace to do only those things that will promote the unity, happiness, and prosperity of Nigeria. Amen. Distinguished colleagues, let us examine the votes and proceedings of our last sitting. Page 593, page 594, page 595, page 596, page 597, page 598, page 599, page 600, page 601.
Page 601.
Yes, page 601. Ekong Samson.
Mr. President, my name is Ekong Samson, Akwa Ibom South. I think cross 9. The name appears to be a Chinese name and does seem to belong to the owner of the name. It's Ekong Samson.
Yes.
What we have here appears to be a Chinese version of that name.
Noted. What is here is Ekong
Sampon,
Samspon.
like a Chinese.
Samspon, but they didn't put Chingwe.
Yes. Thank you.
So we'll correct that to Ekong Samson. Noted. Distinguished Senator Ibisagwa.
Mr. President, and my very distinguished colleagues, I move that the votes and proceedings on Thursday, 28 November 2024 be adopted.
Distinguished Senator Haruna.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to second that the board and proceeding of the previous last sitting, I second that should be adopted. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded. Those in support of the adoption and approval of the votes and proceedings of our last sitting say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Let me, on behalf of the Senate, acknowledge the presence of staff and students of blessed and precious Children Academy, Lugbe, in Abuja. They are in the gallery to observe Senate proceedings. I want to wish you all very fruitful observation of the Senate proceedings of today and journey mercies back to your school when you are through. May God bless you. You may be seated. Distinguished colleagues, on behalf of the Senate, let me congratulate distinguished Senator Fasuji Cyril Oluwole on his birthday. He was born 1st December, and I don't want to mention the year. So, Cyril, congratulations. We wish you long life, prosperity, and many more years of service to our fatherland. Any petitions? None. Leader of the Senate? No petitions. So,
Mr. President, distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the first business of the day is the presentation of a House bill standing in my name on the Chartered Institute of Training and Development of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2024 HB 1550. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Chartered Institute of Training and Development of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2024, HB 1550, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Chartered Institute of Training and Development of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2024, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Jibril Barau on the Maitama Sule Federal University of Education, Kano State Establishment Bill 2024, SB 663. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Maitama Sule Federal University of Education, Kano State Establishment Bill 2024, SB 663, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Maitama Sule Federal University of Education, Kano State Establishment Bill 2024, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Kalu Oji Uzo on the Tax Crime Commission Bill 2024 SB 17. Mr. President, may we to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Tax Crime Commission Bill 2024, SB 17, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Tax Crime Commission Bill 2024, SB 17, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Banigo Ipalibo Harry on the Federal Medical Centers Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 659. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal Medical Centers Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 659, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Federal Medical Centers Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 659, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Akobundu Austin on the Institute of Entrepreneurship and Technical Skills Development, Osisioma, Abia State, Establishment Bill 2024, SB 660. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Institute of Entrepreneurship and Technical Skills Development, Osisioma Abia State Establishment Bill 2024, SB 660, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Institute of Entrepreneurship and Technical Skills Development, Osisioma, Abia State Establishment Bill 2024, SB 660, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, most distinguished colleagues, the sixth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Kawu Sulaiman on the National Examination Council Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 662. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Examination Council Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 662, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, National Examination Council NECO Act Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2024, SB 662, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President, and very distinguished colleagues. I rise to move for an amendment to the items listed on the order paper. Mr. President, what is listed as the fifth order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the Joint Committee on Finance, National Planning, and Economic Affairs on the 2024-2026 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, MTEF, and Fiscal Strategy paper. Mr. President, this report had been on our order paper and had to be stepped down at least twice in view of the importance of this and the fact that our colleagues in the House of Representatives had already done this, and the management of the National Assembly is waiting for our own conclusive legislative action to be able to transmit this. I am moving that we take as the first order of the day, instead of the fifth order of the day, the presentation of the joint report by the Committee on Finance and National Planning on the MTEF and FSP 2025 to 2027 paper. I so move, Mr. President.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I support the motion moved by the Senate leader that the order paper be rearranged to bring forward the Joint Committee report on Finance and National Planning and Economic Affairs. I so second.
Colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that we do substitute item 1 for item 5 in our order paper. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Yes. Leader of the Senate, you may proceed to move item 5 for consideration.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Joint Committee on Finance, National Planning and Economic Affairs on the 2025 to 2027 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. Mr. President, you may wish to invite most distinguished Senator Sani Musa, Chairman of the Senate Committee on Finance, to move the motion for the Senate to receive and consider the report of the committee.
Distinguished Senator Sani Musa.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Muhammad Sani Musa, representing Niger East Senatorial District. I move that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Joint Committees on Finance and National Planning and Economic Affairs on the 2025 to 2027 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. I so move, sir.
Distinguished Senator Karibi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My colleagues, my name is Karimi Sunday Steve. I represent the people of Kogi West. I hereby second the motion that we consider the report of MTEP as moved by my chairman. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded. Those in support that the report be laid before us say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Sani Musa, you may proceed. Distinguished Senator Sani Musa, you may wish to summarize the report.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. The report of the Senate Committee on Finance and National Planning and Economic Affairs on the 2025-2027 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, MTEF, and Fiscal Strategy Paper, FSP. The Senate, at its sitting on the 19th November 2024, referred the request of Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federation on the 2025-2027 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and Fiscal Strategy Paper, MTEP and FSP, to the Senate Joint Committee on Finance and National Planning and Economic Affairs for further legislative action. This is in line with the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007, which requires the federal government to present a medium-term expenditure framework before each appropriation bill. The objectives of the bill is highlighted. The framework emphasizes economic stability, sustainable growth, and prudent resource management. It prioritizes long-term planning, infrastructure development, and fiscal discipline to align financial policies with national priorities. Also takes care of infrastructure and economic growth. The framework projects an ambitious infrastructure development agenda, focusing on energy and transport to stimulate productivity and industrial growth. The government is committed to prudent borrowing and investments that promote long-term economic resilience. The Joint Committee's legislative action in furtherance of the Senate mandate, we had a stakeholder deliberation on the 2025-2027 MTEP and FSP with a view to comprehensively review the expenditure framework. The key stakeholders that attended the interactive session include the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Budget, and Ministry of Budget and National Planning, Debt Management Office, Office of the Accountant General, and of course, many other agencies, MDAs. In the course of the interactive session, the Joint Committee assessed the 2024 budget performance as well as scrutinized the 2025 to 2027 financial projections and the need to ensure effective fund management while minimizing inefficiencies and deficit financing. In this regard, MDAs were categorized into three groups for the review. Fully funded agencies, those fully funded agencies through the federal budget, to partially funded agencies, agencies with partial allocations, and independent agencies like the GOEs, agencies operating outside the federal budget. Macroeconomics and fiscal projections of 2025. The GDP growth was projected at 4.4% in 2025 and 5.5% by 2026, driven by investments in infrastructure, agriculture, and telecommunications. Inflation is expected to decline to 15.8% in 2025, supported by prudent monetary policies. Federation and federal government revenues. Federation account revenue increased driven by the removal of petrol subsidies, market-determined exchange rates, and growth in non-oil tax revenues. The federal government of Nigeria revenues are projected at 34.82 trillion for 2025, with significant contributions from non-oil revenues, including corporate taxes and VAT. Federal government expenditures. Total expenditure is estimated at 47.9 trillion for 2025, a 36.6% increase from 2024. Capital expenditure is allocated 16.48 trillion to drive infrastructure development. Fiscal deficit is projected at 13.08 trillion, equivalent to 3.87% of the GDP, primarily financed through domestic borrowing. The 2024 budget performance was appraised to revenue performance on the non-oil revenues exceeded expectations, offsetting shortfalls in oil revenue. The federal government retained 73.8% of its revenue target as at as of August 2024. Expenditure performance. Total spending reached 16.98 trillion, with notable allocations to debt servicing, which is about 7.41 trillion, and personnel cost about 3.73 trillion. Assumptions for 2025 to 2027 revenue projections, oil benchmarks, the oil price set at $75 per barrel for 2025. Oil production is projected at 2.12 million barrels per day in 2025, rising to 2.6 million barrels per day by 2027. Non-oil revenues, expansion of the tax base and improved compliance expected to drive growth. Exchange rate stabilization at 1,400 naira per dollar per United States dollar over the medium term. The monetary policy and debt management. The Central Bank of Nigeria will adopt an inflation targeting framework to maintain economic stability. Meanwhile, the federal government remains committed to a balanced debt management strategy. Public-private partnership will continue to finance key infrastructure projects, albeit with caution to limit contingent liabilities. Hold on, though. Let me see. Okay, don't worry. Key economic assumptions for the 2025 budget. Daily crude oil production is putting at 2.06 million barrels per day. I have done that. So if you look at page, in the report now, we're going into the report. If you look at page 50 of the report, you go to page 50 of the report, you will see our findings. Following a thorough review of the submissions presented by MDAs, the Joint Committee noted the following. The projected oil benchmark prices at USD 75, 76.2, and 75.3 per barrel for 2025, 2026, and 2027 respectively. The 3-year projection for domestic crude oil production had a significant increase from 1.78 million barrels per day in this preceding year to 2.6, 2.1, and 2.35 for subsequent years of 2025, 2026, and 2027. I have already captured all that. If you look at it, then we will go to the other findings that we have found. Like capital expenditure is projected at 16.48 trillion, which is exclusive of transfers. Statutory transfers stand at 4.26 trillion. Sinking fund is projected at 430.27 billion. Total recurrent on non-debt is projected at 14.21 trillion. Special intervention for recurrent and capital is expected at 200 billion and 7 billion respectively. That the existing liabilities and debt obligations are largely responsible for increasing debt profile in the country. Most revenue-generated agencies violate the Fiscal Responsibility Act due to the lack of punitive provisions in the Act. Non-compliance with the Nigerian Export Supervision Scheme Act by relevant government agencies, specifically focusing on the inspection and monitoring of oil and gas exports as well as non-oil exports. Identify system gaps and irregularities in the operations of import duty exemption certificates that the federal government ministries, departments, and agencies, as well as the government-owned enterprises, are not complying with the financial reporting standard. Recommendations. 1. The projected oil benchmark prices at USD 75, USD 76.2, and 75.3 per barrel be approved for 2025, 2026, and 2027 respectively. The 3-year projections for domestic crude oil production had a significant increase from 1.78 million barrels per day in the preceding year to 2.06, 2.10, and 2.35 for the subsequent years of 2025, 2026, and 2027 be approved, subject to NMPCL confirmation of actual and verifiable deliveries. 3, that the National Assembly, through its committees on finance and other relevant committees, should carry out in-depth investigation of such agreements with a view to reconcile remittances to the Federation accounts from 2018 to 2024 in the case of NMPCL and NLNG from inception to date. The GDP, gross domestic product growth rate, which is projected at 4.6%, 4.4%, and 5.5% for years 2025, 2026, and 2027, respectively, be approved. 5, the projected exchange rate, which stands at 1,400 USD for year 2025, 2026, and 2027, be approved as a determinant for economic development in early 2025. Will be determined by monetary and fiscal policy indices in the year in question. Inflation rates projection, which are 15.75%, 14.21%, and 10.04% for 2025, 2026, and 2027 be approved. Following the criteria in the overview of the framework for revenues and expenses, the 2025 Federal Government of Nigeria budget proposed spending stands at 47.9 trillion, of which 34.82 trillion was retained. New borrowings stood at 9.22 trillion, which constitute both domestic and foreign borrowings. Debt service was valued at 15.38 trillion. Pensions, gratuities, and retirees' benefits stood at 1.443 trillion, and fiscal deficits at 13.08 trillion be approved. Capital expenditure is projected at 16.48 trillion, which is exclusive of transfers. Statutory transfer stands at 4.26 trillion. Sinking fund is projected at 430.27 billion, also be approved. The committee recommends the respective figures for total recurrent non-debts at 14.21 trillion. Special intervention for current and capital is at 200 billion and 7 billion, respectively. That the National Assembly do approves the promissory note program and bond issuance to settle outstanding claims and liabilities of federal government owed states, high-profile judgments, as well as liabilities incurred by federal ministry, department, and agencies on behalf of government be approved. The committee recommends that a quarterly investigative hearing with revenue-generating agencies to track their compliance with Fiscal Responsibility Act and punish those in clear contravention of the Act be approved. That the Committee on Finance review and initiate inquiry into the implementation of the Nigerian Export Supervision Scheme Act, specifically focusing on the inspection and monitoring of oil and gas exports by the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank of Nigeria to ensure effectiveness, compliance, and oversight mechanisms under the Act, identify gaps or challenges, and enhance revenue for the government through transparency, accountability, and efficiency of export supervision in line with national economic objectives. That the Committee on Finance and Customs to initiate an investigative inquiry into the operations of the Import Duty Exemption Certificate (IDEC) program, with a focus on the administration of import waivers and their impact on revenue losses by the Federal Ministry of Finance and the Nigerian Customs Service, as a way of evaluating compliance, identify systematic gaps or irregularities, and recommend measures to enhance transparency, accountability, and optimize revenue generation for the nation. Finally, the committee recommends that a performance metric be established for MDAs with 4 financial reporting standards and mandate regular independent audits of their accounts to ensure compliance. In conclusion, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we deeply appreciate the opportunity entrusted to us to undertake this critical national assignment. It is our sincere hope that the approval of these recommendations will serve as a catalyst to enhance the economic prosperity of our beloved country. Thank you, Mr. President. I so submit.
Distinguished Senator Salim Mustafa.
Your Excellency, Senate President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second this report on the 2025 to 2027 medium-term expenditure framework, MTEF, and fiscal strategy paper. I so second.
Distinguished Senator Aliru.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name remains Muhammad Adamaleru, representing KB Center. President, let me first and foremost commend the Committee of Finance for presenting this report. Committee on Finance and National Planning, the Joint Committee. Let me also make some observations, Mr. President. First is on the exchange rate. We debated very seriously at the committee level that the exchange rate 1,400 naira is unrealistic in view of the fact that the central bank rate today is about 1,730. So we wanted the exchange rate to be reviewed upward. Equally, the inflation rate, which is tagged at 15%, currently is about 30%. And I don't see how we can reduce it to about 15%. Then another observation, Mr. President, the approval of promissory notes for settlement of debts to states and also other liabilities. We should have asked for the amount required instead of giving a blanket approval. We should be very, very specific. We are dealing with revenue, and every kobo counts. So we should be very conscious of this. Let me also commend the Committee on Finance for thoroughly investigating the revenue generating agencies. We discovered that there are so many lapses, and we didn't have time to attend to these lapses. So it is suggested that we should continue with investigation with the view of correcting all the revenue loopholes that have been discovered, particularly where remittances are not made to the federal government. The NNPC is withholding well over 20 trillion naira based on what we discovered. And they are saying that with the withdrawal of petroleum subsidy, there is no longer going to be any amount that they will withhold. Whatever they earn will be remitted into the federation account. But we want them to remit the outstanding amount that they are holding. Otherwise, they are shortchanging the federation account. So these are my few observations. Thank you, Mr. President.
This Senator Sani Musa, you heard the things he said. For instance, on the indebtedness, he's of the view that this is monetary issue and that we should actually mention the amount instead of giving a blanket cover. So, yeah, I'd like you to respond. And also, he has also mentioned that NNPC at the moment, or NNPCL, is owing the Federation account about 20 trillion. And that they are saying henceforth, they will be remitting whatever is accruable to the Federation as and when due. So what happens to the previous 20 trillion that they had already changed the Federation? So that so I want you to respond. How did you tackle that issue?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mohammed Sani Musa, Niger East. I'll first take on the issue of the exchange rates. The exchange rate is pegged at 1,400 for 2025, 2026, 2027. As of today, we don't have any official exchange rate pricing. Prices of foreign exchange is determined by the market. So when we pegged our budget at 1,400, any excess above 1,400 will be utilized to at least pay our domestic or foreign loans to reduce our loan and liabilities. So that is the reason why it was pegged at 1,400. And then, because we know the quantum of liabilities and also the revenue that we are expecting to generate, both from the oil, which gives us the USD. So any excess above that 1,400 will be utilized to service our debts.
Yes, but you also mentioned that you needed to come up with a figure of what the indebtedness was. That is the total debt profile. That's what you said. Total debt profile. Instead of glossing over it and just mentioning it, that it is important for English colleagues to know what you discovered as a total debt profile as of today.
The total debt profile as of today, because we just approved another 2.2 trillion. And based on that, they've just floated a bond. I would not be able to give you exactly how much is our total debt profile because the 2.2 has not yet been taken. So I will get the DMO. They are in UK at the moment on the roadshow for the 2.2 trillion. That's $2.2 billion. As at yesterday, they are yet to finalize the transaction. So we will not be able to know exactly what our debt profile will be because already as at yesterday, about 1.7 billion has been assessed by investors. So that can be determined when they return, and then I will give the debt profile.
Okay. Dismissed Senator Olamileko.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleague, Adeola Solomon Olamileko, representing Ogun West Senatorial District in the Senate of the Federal Republic. Mr. President, let me start by commending the Senate Committee on Finance. The commendation comes from the fact that this document is the foundation for the appropriation estimate which the President will be laying before the Senate. And all the indices that the projection contained in this document, I observe, has been sustained by the committee. I want to commend them for that. Areas which, for me, is of concern, especially is in the area of inflation. As we speak, inflation is at 33%, National Bureau of Statistics. And the projection is, for this year, inflation will be 15.75, subsequent 14.75, and by third year it will be 10.01. And three things are responsible for this inflation. One, food insecurity. Two, subsidy. Three,
FX. And for these three items, that is why currently today, as we speak, our inflation is at 33%.
Break it down. Which one is FX?
That is foreign exchange. Mr. President, if going by the plan put together by this administration will work, I can assure us that all these projections can actually materialize. For instance, on the issue of FX, thank God our local refineries are working. Port Harcourt refinery is already working. Yes, Port Harcourt refinery is currently working. Dangote is also working. And this put less pressure on our FX. It put less pressure. If we could bring Kaduna refinery on board, what that simply means that the demand for FX will reduce drastically. And we can now divert the usage of our FX to all other services aside importing of refined products. Two, on the issue of the oil, this administration is working so hard to see how we bring on board the CNG. And they are already making impact gradually. The conversion kit is already coming in. And for instance, I give you a scenario. For you to move from here from Benin to Lagos, the total number of amount of fuel that you consume will stand at about 178,000 naira. But with the CNG, you will not use more than 48,000 naira. And I strongly believe that if this administration could put more effort in this direction, I think the issue of PMS becoming an issue will be optional. If you want to go with the PMS, if you want to go with, and all of this put together will further bring lower pressure on our FX. Thirdly, on the area of food insecurity, I know this administration is investing so much in agriculture. They are doing so much. At least let us be able to feed ourselves. And with all this effort put together by this administration, I think the issue of food security by next year will be a thing of the past. And I strongly feel that all indices sustained that have been adhered to by the committee is a step in the right direction. And on the issue of the internally generated revenue, I am taken aback. Agencies like Custom have surpassed their budget already. Federal Inland Revenue Service has surpassed their budget already. And we should be prepared to give them a new budget target. That's one area we should look forward to as National Assembly. If Customs will have caused Rubicon of 5 trillion naira this year, and we are still in December, then we should be looking at between 7.5 and 8 trillion naira for next year. And so many other revenue generating agencies in that direction. And also, the Central Bank of Nigeria, for the last couple of years, have not paid to the coffers of the government their revenue surplus. And we were informed that there's a reconciliation currently going on, and that runs to several billions of naira on the part of the Central Bank of Nigeria, which will be remitted to the Consolidated Revenue Fund account. This we must work on by the National Assembly. And lastly, on what is our actual debt profile. I think Committee on Loans, Aids and Debt should be in the position to give us the actual figure of our current debt profile as a country. Again, another area that's of concern to me, which I want us to look into as National Assembly, is the area of ratio of capital to revenue. I mean the capital expenditure. We are still far from the current realities. As we speak, recurrent to capital is in ratio 80 to 20 for the last couple of years. That should not be. It shouldn't. That is the cost of running the government is far higher than cost of providing infrastructure to Nigerians. This is one area as a National Assembly we must look into and see ways by which we can correct this. Mr. President, having said these few things, I want to commend the committee, and I strongly believe that this year we are going into will be a good year for us as a country, and with all the reforms being introduced by this current administration, it's a right step in the right direction, and we should not stop at that. Thank you, Mr. President. I so submit.
Distinguished Senator Yahya.
Mr. President,
my highly respected and distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, I'm quite happy that what the two committees have done at this stage is to adopt more or less hook, line, and sinker the proposals that have been sent by the executive in their medium-term expenditure framework. And I also agree partly with the position taken by distinguished Senator Olamilekan that yes, some of the projections that we have seen and some of the baseline data on which the medium-term expenditure framework has been based are futuristic. What I mean by futuristic is that they are based on expectations. These expectations have so many pitfalls. They are either going to be realized or we are likely going to find ourselves in a greater challenge when we approve these parameters at the basis of which the budget is going to be based. Mr. President, we all know the volatility of oil prices. Thankfully, a lot of the driver of the economic growth in this country today has shifted from oil to non-oil resources. But then, the devil in the detail is that the non-oil component is made up more of service provision than the actual real sector investments that we are going to experience. Another problem that we should look at is what contribution really and what kind of investments are we making in the real sector of the economy? Some of these issues, I may be part of the problem because my committee is also involved. But because of the futuristic nature of the projections and the very lofty ideas that have informed the reform process, one will find it very difficult to really make substantive contributions unless these reforms mature and we start seeing, positive improvements. But we have to also hedge our bets. And by hedging the bets, we have seen the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria recently coming out with data that almost all the manufacturing companies in this country are recording negative returns, which means that the amount of taxes that we can get from CIT, company income taxes, are almost zero. So the major problem that we have is that you cannot tax companies that are making losses. Therefore, the major issues that we have, Mr. President, while I'm not averse to the direction of making futuristic prognostications, the National Assembly should be on the pedal, really, because there may be a need, maybe sometime around March, for us to sit down and look at the projections that have been made so that a review, particularly when we are talking about petroleum domestic refining, yes, but the feedstock that is going into domestic refining is at international prices. So whatever benefit we are likely going to get will not be the Dangote recently reduced just 20 naira, which is completely a very insignificant reduction, from what we have been experiencing. So I think we should go ahead and approve this projection with a pinch of salt. But it also means that we in the National Assembly, particularly this very, very distinguished chamber, Mr. President, should have its eyes on the ball so that by March, we should be able to see the ways in which the macroeconomy is moving.
so that we can come back and put a break or adjust certain parameters depending on the way in which the reform process progresses. While deciding to move there, thanking you and thank you also the committee for their projection, I want to take note of item 4 in the recommendations, where the chairman of the finance committee excised my committee from report of an institution that we are oversighting. I think the Committee on National Planning should be one of the committees that should look at the report of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission, so that we can be able to be on the same page with what the NMPC is claiming, or what we are claiming the NMPC is holding from the revenue of the country. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Chairman. Note what you have said. The Committee on National Planning should also be part of the reporting committee on this. The distinguished Senator Jimo Ibrahim, the only senator with PhD in warfare.
Mr. Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, my colleagues, my name is Jimo Ibrahim, foreign shore representing Ondo South. Let me thank the committees for excellent job, and in a few minutes, just 1 minute, talk to the paper. Accounting is historical. Accounting is historical. Data can only be futuristic. So the projection made here are valid projections because they cannot be subjected to audit. Mr. Senate President, let me say clearly, and let me recall the point I made when this government came into being, that the cash ratio to GDP, which is very fundamental, was 1%. Cash ratio to gross domestic product, that is, GDP is the volume of the economy. When Tinubu took over, was 1%. 1%. How can any MD take over a company with 1% cash ratio to GDP? We already know from that very document that we have a lot of problems because there will be no cash to run the economy with 1% GDP to cash ratio. But today, we've seen all of these movements around the economy. One important thing that I think this Sunday will make history is to ensure that food security is very, very important. Now, like we suggested at the World Bank, let's have voucher for food, particularly for the first 30 million Nigerians that are impoverished, that are critically in the poverty net. If we collapse all the accounts of palliatives in the central bank, and we print voucher for food and give to 30 million Nigerians, 100,000 naira per month, now you reduce money supply. The inflation is caused by the gravity of money supply in the market. And the more you have money supply, you have inflation problem, you have forex problem, foreign exchange problem. All of this problem begins to come in because your money supply is high. Let me say clearly, the growth projection here is very accurate and it commensurates with international standard, particularly the global growth ratio, at the medium time rate. But the key thing is that we must ensure at the Senate that government is more advised critically to look into food security. Food security, again, is dangerous because it's one of the weapons for war. Because you can't control food insecurity. And the complaint about government policies will reduce when hunger is no longer there. So I would suggest that as much as the document talk to the economic prosperity of next year, it is very key that we look at food for voucher so that 30 million Nigeria can be taken away from the tax net. We are not printing new money. All we are saying is that collapse palliative accounts. In fact, the two senators here are the best to distribute voucher for food in their various territorial districts. If those vouchers were printed, how can you imagine giving 10 billion naira to a state governor for palliative? He is going to use the money to do road or do anything. But if you give him 10 billion voucher for food, no one can take more than 100,000 naira per voucher. There is no way the governor can steal the money or do anything funny with the money. And the district senator here are the best to even circulate, distribute voucher for food. Lastly, on the data issue, you will recall, Mr. Senate President, that I even brought a bill before this very distinguished Senate about federal data bank. This data is now reoccurring every day. Every arm of government, whether executive or legislative, need data to work. We must appreciate the current government and the effort being made to generate this data. Because we need data. There's no data bank in Nigeria. Even if you want to know how many people are actually in poverty now, you can only project. You don't really have the actual data. And we need to create this data. And I do think that when the bill comes to the next reading, my colleagues will be happy to support that. We need data for everything that we do. If we don't have data, it is very difficult to plan. So I will say, with all respect, that if we can take away, if we can do voucher for food, I can ask senators to distribute vouchers in their various senatorial districts, and we have data to back it up, then Nigeria will be smiling. Nigeria will be great. Nigeria will be a wonderful country. And let me say this finally, that I must commend Senator Sani Musa and his team for brilliant job done, because, like I said, account is historical. Account is not futuristic. It is only data can talk to the future. Account only talk to the past. We can only audit the money we spent last year or 2 years ago. We cannot audit the money that we will spend next year. So, Mr. Senate President, like I said, I'll conclude my submission by saying that this document is valid. This document is incredibly very, very competent to talk to the future, because you and me know that accounting is about yesterday. It cannot be about future. We cannot audit what we will spend next year. We cannot audit what we are going to spend next year budget, but we can audit what we spent yesterday. So accounting is historical, data is futuristic. Based on that, this is a very valid document, well prepared, intelligently formulated, and I think we should adopt it, urgently, and ensure that we only talk to it through food security by putting voucher and collapsing the palliative account at the central bank to issue vouchers to 10 to 30 million Nigeria that are vulnerable, so that we can have our peace. Again, I also think that the rich are not well taxed. The rich are not well taxed. Yes, there is need for us to increase revenue. If you want to increase revenue, because MBA is about revenue minus cost. So if your revenue is greater than your cost, you are profitable. If your revenue is less than your cost, you are at loss. But when the rich are buying planes, buying Rolls Royces, buying cars, buying houses, and the taxes are not there, I think we must even have a policy that traces the bank account number of the rich, and ensure that they contribute more, so that all of us will be a jolly good fellow with the poor and move our national economy forward. Once again, thank you, Mr. President, and my very, very good distinguished colleagues. I thank you very much for the time.
Is a distinguished senator with PhD in warfare that mentioned tax. So I did not mention tax. So, but I'm taking cognizance of what you said, that those of you who are very wealthy, I know you, I know many of you here, Professor Jimo Ibrahim, and others who are very wealthy, that you are not well taxed. You are the one that mentioned that you are not well taxed, and that you are still able to buy Rolls Royce and service your private jets. I'm sure the same Senator Ojo Sokalo, you are not with us.
No, thank you, Mr. President.
No, I didn't call you to talk. I only wanted to mention that
Somebody was.
yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since I'm up already.
Senator Jimo Ibrahim said that those of you who are with Rolls Royce and private jets, that you are not well taxed, and that people are not paying the adequate tax.
Including you, Mr. President.
I'm not part of that. I'm not part of that. Don't go there. Don't go
Thank
there.
you. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me this little opportunity. Mistakenly, but you gave it to me. I want to thank the committee, which I'm a member, for what we have done. We did a very good job. I will recall to direct Mr. President on page 36 or 38 of the MTEF. You will realize that the mention about
border patrol. Without securing our border in this budget, we are not going to do a lot in food because the bandits are still coming in. We must pay more attention to secure our land. When I mean our land, I'm talking about the borders, the hinterlands, and everywhere. Because the bandits are still disturbing us. You can see this MTF can show some commendable effort because the refineries are coming up. Not only Dangote refinery, the government-owned refineries are coming up. And some of the modular refineries are also coming up. So it's going to reduce prices of fuel, definitely. But prices of fuel, the dollar we are talking about is no longer the problem. The dollar is the dollar being transacted. Nigeria is the only country I have seen using two currencies at the same time. We should stop it in this budget. People should stop using dollar in the street of Nigeria. If you go to Abu Dhabi, you go to UAE, you see government officials, private sector people, traders, even grandmothers, like my grandmother in the village. You say, give me dollar. Why must people be transacting dollar and naira? We should abolish the use of dollar in the street of Nigeria. Dollar should be totally abolished. The dirham, the official money of UAE, is still at 3.2%. I went there first in 89. And if it's 3.2, we should let people to deal with official dealers of dollar. Because all this dollarization of our economy is not helping us. It's not even the import of fuel. It's not import of fuel that these people is talking. Let us go back and put official dealers of dollar, that people should stop dealing on dollars. I know Mr. President is looking at me and granted. People should totally stop using dollar in the street of Nigeria. We will transact and transfer, not cash. You cannot put, you see landlords are saying, pay me in dollar. People are saying, pay me in dollar. And we must stop this as a country if we are serious. If we are not serious, our dollar will continue going down. It's not the import, fuel import we are importing. It is the money people are using, demanding in dollars, that are causing our economic problem. We must look at it. Mr. Asadi Musa, your committee should go back to look back on how we can make these things happen. Mr. President of the Republic must sign executive bill stopping usage of dollars in the street of Nigeria. Because I'm concerned. If you people are not concerned as my colleagues, I am concerned that dollars is traded every day in the street of Abuja. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Deputy Senate President.
Mr. President, let me first of all commend the chairman of the Joint Committee and members of the Joint Committee for a job well done. I'm really delighted by the work they've done. I'm also very delighted that the non-oil revenue that are accrued to the government is really substantial, thereby making up for the shortfall in oil revenue. But this is what we've been saying year in, year out, that more concentration should be on the diversification of our economy. Let's not rely on oil revenue alone. This nation is endowed with several avenues of getting in revenue to the government, solid minerals, and other areas, agriculture, and so on and so forth. So what is happening now in terms of our revenue accrual is something that is really in tandem with our zeal to boost our economy. Also, the projections that is clearly stated here is something that we need to be happy about. But as said by a speaker before me, we should do everything within our power to make sure that these sound and encouraging projections are pursued and get implemented. Like GDP growth rate is expected to be at 44.4% in 2025 and 5.5% by 2026, and which is going to be driven by investments in infrastructure and agriculture. This is a welcome, and telecommunications. This is a welcome scenario. But I've said, as I said earlier, and emphasized by a speaker before me, by Senator Abdullahi Yahya, we should do everything possible to make sure that these projections are not just something that is just written. But I'm really optimistic by the posture of the government. By the posture of the government, I'm sure this projection will be realized because the government is very, very serious and up and doing to make sure the economy is shaped for the better. So I'm very, very much optimistic. And even the fact that these projections are being made, it shows that the zeal is there, the political will is there to bring about a sound economic development occasioned by growth in our GDP and so on and so forth. That said, I also want to point out the fact that the oil production, it is expected that it's going in 2025 is going to be 2.12 million barrels per day. Even though there's a mix-up, when you in the summary, it is stated as 2.06 billion barrels per day. I think it's a mix-up, but whatever is the case, I think that is a very good projection. I mean, it's an optimism, and it shows that the government is determined to really bring about security in the Niger Delta. It's working very hard to make sure that those who are stealing our crude no longer have that free chance to do whatever they want to do, the latitude to do what they want to do with reckless abandon. So it shows that the government is up and doing in making sure that security is brought to bear in the creeks of Niger Delta, is brought to bear in making sure that those who steal our oil reckless abandon will no longer have the free day to do so. So I think it's a wonderful projection, and the necessary committees, the appropriate committees, should be should increase the tempo of their oversight by putting those responsible on their toes. I know the government executive is doing very well by working with the security agencies and proper oversight over them, but the National Assembly committees, committee on army, on petroleum, on navy, or whatever, every committee that has oversight jurisdiction in making sure that such things will not happen should be on their toes so that these ugly incidents of crude debt and what have you should stop. Otherwise, we'll not be able to actualize this projection. As well, okay, I think overall, all the projections are okay. The total expenditure, which has been increased, against what we had last year, is also encouraging, even though Naira has been devalued, and so we had expected that have an increase in terms of our expenditure to take care of various developmental projects that are ongoing. The government is determined to change landscape of our infrastructure so that we have what it takes to develop our economy. Yes, for 7.9 trillion, it's okay. It's okay. It's not too optimistic. I mean, it's not too ambitious. Not too ambitious, but moderate. So we should all work together. We will not say the executive should work together to actualize our revenue projection. It's something that rests on our shoulders as a government. We also have to up our game in making sure that we do the necessary oversight. Committee on Finance, Committee on all the committees, pursue those revenue earning agencies and make sure there's no leakage that occurs at all. Otherwise, we'll not be able to achieve what we want to
Chief Chairman Banking, you also have a duty to play in this regard. All of us will rally together, make sure that we work together as a government, actualize, what is the projections that are encapsulated in this report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Ningi.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is Senator Abdul Ningi, and I represent Bauchi Center of Bauchi State. Mr. President, let me thank all those who spoke in commending the Committee of Finance and to some extent the Committee on National Planning. As a member of the Finance Committee, I think we have taken enough time to come up with the MTF resolution. And this futuristic resolution is a product of scientific analysis. It's not just something that came up without looking at the data. But what I found out most alarming, most disturbing, Mr. President, is that if you look at over 92 reporting revenue agencies, which you took them one by one, you could clearly see almost a total absence of oversight to some of these agencies. And these agencies,
Distinguished Senator Sani Musa, Chairman of Finance, please listen to the submission. He said
you
if
could
you look
clearly
at
see
over 92
reporting agencies that clearly spelled out.
revenue agencies, that you could almost see
92.
total absence of oversight function. That is our committee on Senate Committee on Finance is not oversighting them. That's what they just reported now.
The fact of the matter, even those agencies that seem to be in the front burner, like Federal Revenue, Customs, NNPC, it is really very difficult for members of the National Assembly to have accurate, verifiable revenue data from them. And that is because committees have no particular time in oversighting their committees. It is a one-year activity. But unfortunately, because of the way we are set up, we lack the mechanism to actually call these agencies to action. And while you call them to action to verify what they have submitted, you could clearly see they are underreporting the figures. They are not giving us the correct information, verifiable information. And at the end of the day, sir, I believe even the bigger revenue generating agencies, I believe strongly they are not reporting this thing to the National Assembly. It's not just about Finance Committee. I'm sure it has to do with almost all the committees of the National Assembly in particular. So what is disturbing is we must come up, Mr. President, to create a kind of mechanism, of a way out of making sure that where revenue generating agencies refuse to report accurate information, verifiable information, then something has to give in. There must be a way of sanctioning some of them. Usually, when you see this 92, quite a number of them have been invited by the Public Accounts Committee. Not once, not 2 times, not 3 times, sometimes even some of them even 10 times. And they hardly show up. And nothing happens. So I think it is important we put that. Secondly, of importance, I was part of the team that went to Port Harcourt to verify the veracity of otherwise as to whether the NNPC have started production. And I can gladly report, sir, it is commendable no matter what you can say, you have to give kudos to the president, this particular president, for making these things happen in the last 27 years. We had
Order. Listen to what Senator Ningi said, that we must
it-
commend this particular president for making the refinery in Port Harcourt to work. And that this has not happened in the last 27 years.
27
Please,
years.
27 years. Please go on.
27 years.
Please go on.
And that is the truth. And Mr. President, what is disturbing? We found 2 refineries. One was commissioned in 1964, the other one in 1978. What is alarming that this projection is taking place on the refinery that was commissioned in 1964. That is the first one. When you go there, you know from the bottom of your heart that something is amiss in this country. You could see clearly there was an internal sabotage and external influence. And we made the contractor. And he told us, sir, that it is only in Nigeria that he has seen this anomaly happen. So far, he has dealt with the one that is the refinery that was commissioned in 1964. And he's on the one that was commissioned in 1978. And he talked about the mindset of Nigerians, the mindset of people, that as long as we allow people to have their interests over and above that of the country, we will never go far. And we raised issues of sustainability in the course of our assignment last week, and we were assured. We saw the petroleum coming, we saw petroleum be loaded, and I am sure it was all in the national decision. Now, what we must do, I'm sure it will be led by you, Mr. President, is to make sure that ANPC should have no excuse whatsoever in coming back to say they needed something or the other, because we have seen production taking place. If they do that, that means we'll go back to the question of internal sabotage. Yes, going forward, the future is bright. We are having Port Harcourt running. And they said they had done 78% on Wari and Kaduna. So if by March or June next year, we are being able to put our refineries in action, plus Dangote, then we need to see the exchange rate coming down. Because when you look at what ANPC requires and the refineries, they grab much of this foreign exchange in the country. And when we have these 4 refineries working simultaneously, then Nigerians need to see a brighter future. The Nigerians will feel it. They will see it. Right now, whatever you do in this country, there's a question mark whether it will continue. And whereby this thing is coming, where there's a production, we need to see the price of petroleum coming down. We should not continue to keep on business as usual. Production is going on, yet the prices are not coming down. Dangote is on flow. Port Harcourt is on flow. By today, we need to see these petroleum prices coming down, if we are honest with ourselves. And where we don't see it coming down, then it is the work of the National Assembly to ask questions, raise questions, so that we get the answers straight. But where you see some of these things happening and we keep quiet, out there, the people are just part of this conspiracy to making sure that the general citizens of this country suffer. So I think this is something that is modest. The report is clearly done with a serious hard work put on it. We had several days on this MTEM, and we had asked professionals to come and give us their point of view. And I'm sure this is a package that by next year, this time, if these futuristic items are not met, then there must be questions. There must be questions. And where there are no changeable, verifiable answers, then there must be sanctions. Mr. President, sanction is very important. The National Assembly must know that the reason why democracy prevails. The National Assembly must know that the reason why there must be democratic dividends. Show me your nation. Show me your National Assembly, and I will show you the kind of nation you are. Sir, we have what it takes to make sure that this country works. And I believe you can lead the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I was just going to end on the same note that you mentioned now, that if there is any committee that is having difficulty reining in the operators of any agency, they have the power of the Constitution to bring such agencies to book. I would not want to hear that we invited this, invited that. I'm saying that because of what you said about the public account. If you have invited this agency, that agency, demanded documents, and they not, you know you have everything. You can issue warrant of arrest. You have, so I would like a report from almost all the committees to be submitted by January 31st of the activities so far, so that we know where they have difficulties, and then we'll rise to the occasion. The powers are there. The Constitution backs us. So I don't see where any MDA or any kind of any agency will refuse to comply or with the invitation or demand from any committee of the Senate or the National Assembly as a whole. So where you overlook it as a committee, that is where they get away with it, and then it now becomes a norm. So please let us take it seriously. And if for any reason some committees are finding it difficult to oversight the agencies, we change the committee, the composition of the committees, so that those who have the capacities and capabilities can take over and do the job for the benefit of democracy in this country. Distinguished Senator Victor Ome.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Victor Ome, OFR, the small one. I represent Anambra Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this MTF and the strategy paper, fiscal strategy paper. The committee's report, I've gone through the pages, and I can say that both committees did comprehensive work in analyzing this, the documents submitted to the Senate by Mr. President. Mr. President, I am happy that most of the analysis done and the projections made, most of them end on the positive note, giving hope to Nigerians that something or things are being done to rejig the economy so that our standard of living of the Nigerian people will improve. Mr. President, I've looked at the figures put here, both on inflation, the growth rate, and the projection the CBN has made on the stabilization of the Naira versus the dollar. Projection is on 1,400 Naira for $1. This figure may appear very good in the face of what is going on now, about 1,700 and something Naira to $1. 1,400 is still high, but it's a positive figure in the sense that it's a downward slide in the value of the Naira against the dollar. Last week, the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics brought out some figures of the things they have analyzed. Unemployment was given to be declining, and the GDP is growing. Mr. President, of all these projections we have done, the truth is that the test of the pudding is in the eating. You don't tell a blind man that there's salt in the food he's eating because he will test it. So the importance of this exercise is to juxtapose it to the cost of living as experienced by the Nigerian people, so that they will continue to be hopeful and flow with the government. So that when you say have patience, people have patience, knowing that with all these things we have just analyzed here, that hope is on the way. The other thing is that looking at the cost of services and petroleum products, because this one is the one that is affecting Nigerians, very hotly, the cost of petroleum and energy. I can say, Mr. President, that I am very happy, just like Ningi reported, that the Port Harcourt refinery has come on stream. If you have ever followed my TV interviews and everything, from 8 Senate, I've continued to ask for revamping of our refineries. All the policies we're making to bring down prices, I've always seen that to be illusionary unless our refineries come back on stream. Now, the breaking news of the Port Harcourt refinery coming on stream and the loading reported at the base gave me very sound sleep. But what I was expecting is a push down on the prices of PMS and all that. Maybe because they just started, the PMS is still hovering around 1,100 naira per liter. And if they continue loading in the next 6 months, I have every hope that the prices will continue to go down, the petroleum products. So I join Ningi in saying that the government has scored a very good breakthrough on the issue of refineries. Then the other thing is that we must be mindful of the fact that cost of living is still very high. I'm speaking on the side of people like me. I wasn't an ex-governor or people who you know that are wealthy in the chamber. We are suffering because energy now is very expensive. Every 5 days, one will spend about 100,000 naira on electricity in a 5-bedroom house. If these prices are not going down and we're having all these positive projections, it means that the distress will not stop. People will continue to groan over high prices of cost of goods and services. So where government is making gain, I expect that government will cut on those gains and feel where the pains are. The increasing foreign reserve to $36 billion is very healthy at sight. But we will expect that some of these things will rub off on the cost of goods and services so that Nigerians will continue to wait and be hopeful. I express the same optimism that this MTEF was actually very objective in the analysis. The report dealt with the issues the way they are, factually and truthfully. So let government continue to put efforts in bringing down the prices of goods and services so that the ordinary man will understand it. I give you an example of what is going on this tax reform bill. This tax reform bill. You know, last week, the presidential advisor came here.
You have 30 seconds.
I'm coming now. The presidential advisor came here last week. I'm speaking about the way it is, not the way we want it to be.
No, I think we should.
The presidential advisor, Mr. President, I'm rounding up. I'm rounding up.
Let's limit our contributions to the.
Okay, one second more. I sit down.
FSP.
1 second more. I sit down. One thing, last week, the presidential advisor on tax reforms came here, and he spoke to us. We listened. I was one of the people that looked at his eyes and listened from the beginning to the end. And I was wanting to see the controversies. Because every morning you will see a text message, something will be forwarded to you. What are you people doing and what are you people not doing? I believe the anxiety out there is because many people do not understand the issues.
when they hear about anything, tax is something people try to run away from. And that is what is informing this negative reaction to the tax reform bill. Last night, I spent time listening to the town hall meeting on channels on the tax reform bill. And at the end, I couldn't see why we will not allow this thing to be given consideration on the merit. So people react negatively because of hardship. Once they hear that things are going to be this or going to be that, they say no because of hardship. So we want positive impact on the people with these policies and the projections we have made. That's what I want to say, so that we will continue to earn the patience and loyalty of the Nigerian people. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Seriaki Dixon.
Mr. President and my dear colleagues, Henry Siraki Dixon, Bayelsa West. I rise to also lend support to the adoption and passage of this report that has been so brilliantly canvassed and supported by distinguished colleagues. After listening to the very brilliant presentation by the chairman of the committee and the support arguments, I actually waited to hear from to hear the comments or submissions of the co-chair, distinguished Senator Abdullah Yahya, chairman of the Committee on National Planning, because a number of people, while they know that he's a highly ranking and respected senator, people may not know that he's one of our most respected bureaucrats also. And this report is jointly signed by the chairman of both committees. And I've also listened to most of the submissions in support. And the indices, the underlying factors upon which these projections are made are quite modest. Initially, I also took the view that the 1,400 exchange rate is too low, but having listened to the explanation, I think it makes sense for us to budget modestly so that in the course of the year, by the time we achieve the benefits of some of the reports that we have seen and heard, when we confirm them, sure, there's no doubt that the pressure on the Naira in the course of the year may come down. The only concern I have is about the projected level of production, the crude oil production, which is 2.2 million 6 barrels per day. That's a very, very, is a very ambitious projection, because by the last time we heard from the NNPC and the ministry, I don't think they are saying they can do more than 1.8 now. But we know that things keep changing. So at this point, we'll only call for greater oversight and pressure, and to support the ongoing investments in security and community engagement, and call for a more robust implementation of the PIA in terms of community engagement, so that we don't witness any disruption. Because if there is any development to the contrary, we can't achieve this 2 million barrel per day. The projection of $75 is also very modest and highly achievable. When the 6th and 7th National Assemblies, working with the executive team at the time, made the laws establishing this MTEF and the FSP, the intention was to give the legislation an opportunity to contribute to economic policy. And that's what we are doing. It's a good thing. They implement, but policy formulation is our job. Policy interrogation is our job. And that's what we are doing. The challenges to the Nigerian economy are not just about the pressure on our local currency because of oil, crude importation. That's a major factor, yes. Luckily, if the reports are confirmed, as Senator Abdullahi Yahya said, by at least the first quarter of next year, if God helps and we wash and beyond formal reports, if we see consistency and these refineries are actually producing as they are projected to, then at least by the first quarter, we should be able to see some significant reduction of pressure. But my colleagues, in this MTEF or in subsequent ones, or if we are to do an amendment, we need to find time to address the challenge of power generation. Power. Because if we can contain this issue of importation of refined products, the next two other challenges to our national life and economy especially is production of power and stability and law and order in the communities across the country, national security and power. Recently, when as chairman of the Committee on Climate Change, we interacted with some other colleagues around, I was shocked that even in the area of using nuclear energy for power generation, even in West Africa, it is countries like Ghana and others that are leading. So I suggest that if we are doing an amendment sometime next year, and as suggested by Senator Abdullahi, I think we should get ready the both committees, of which I'm also a member of the Committee on Finance. We'll get ready to monitor developments, and where necessary, by the first quarter of next year, look at the prevailing circumstances, and then get an amendment to this, yes, so that we can review whether these projections by the first quarter of next year are attainable and sustainable. But what I'm saying is there's nothing wrong if we are authorizing borrowings. Borrowings should be tied to specific investments that can solve major national problems. If we are borrowing, let us borrow to build power stations, nuclear power stations. They're expensive. We may not be able to do it from our national budgets. So those are some of the challenges we need to see addressed. In all, I support all that has been said, and that this report be adopted and passed, but with a caveat, supporting what distinguished Senator Yahya said, that we should be cautious in our optimism, and that both committees and other relevant committees be on the alert, so that by at least the first quarter of next year, we can sit down, appraise the general economic climate, and where necessary, cause a review of the MTEF. Thank you.
My brother. Senator Issa Jibrin.
Your Excellency, the President of the Senate, very distinguished colleagues,
I am Issa Jibrin, representing the very good people of Kogi East. Your Excellency, first I want to thank Senator Sani Musa and all of us who are members of his committee for a job very well done. Thank you very much. We have come up with milestone recommendations, which I believe, if implemented to the letter, will take this country out of the current economic issues that we are bedeviled with. Your Excellency, I want to talk specifically on the issue of waivers. Waivers in themselves waivers themselves are not bad. Okay, giving out waivers to importers are in themselves not an economic sabotage. The only problem is the abuse of the waivers. Usually there is a trade-off between the waivers that we give to importers. There is a trade-off between the waivers that we give to importers, okay, and the production activities that those production companies are going to generate, so that at the end of the day, the companies will be able to create employment opportunities for Nigerians. If you give a waiver to someone or a company that is involved in agriculture, for example, whatever you are losing by giving out that waiver will eventually be recovered over and above when that company goes into production. First, they will use the raw materials that are available in Nigeria, agricultural raw materials that are available in Nigeria. They will create employment opportunities. And those companies in themselves, when they start production, will also pay taxes, corporate taxes, and personal income taxes for the employees. Now, I think with respect to the investigation that they are talking about, we need to be a bit careful so that we don't discourage some importers from bringing in items that will add values to the economy. The only area of concern, Your Excellency, is that some of the items that are imported into Nigeria under this waiver arrangement are subjected to all forms of abuses. In particular, aircrafts, commercial aircrafts, and oil rigs. Okay? What happens is that these companies that import oil rigs, that import commercial aircrafts, get waivers for at times a month period of about 9 months. Okay? At the expiration of that waiver, they return those items to the sources and then bring them back again and ask for an additional 9 months waiver. So it's like a recycling. That is where I think we need to investigate. The abuse is there. The abuses there is so much, it's so enormous, and I think we need to address that. Then finally, Your Excellency, I want to talk of the issue of debts. Okay? Debts themselves are not bad. But the important thing is what these monies are used for. Like Senator Seriki mentioned, what are these monies used for? I want to believe that whatever monies we are going to take by way of additional debt should be monies that we use, debts that we use for revenue generating enterprises. Such that at the end of the day, those debts will be able to service themselves, they'll be able to liquidate themselves over a period. And then beside debts, Your Excellency, I think we need to look at other forms of funding, like public-private partnership arrangements. Okay? And then at times the issue of concession, especially areas that are revenue generating. So instead of dwelling so much on debt, we may have to look at other sources of generating revenues, other forms of funding, like I said, PPP arrangement, private-public arrangement, and then the issue of concessions, especially on companies that we believe that are revenue generating and they can pay off themselves. Generally, debt is always a problem, whether you like it or not. But like I said, it becomes less of a problem if the money is applied judiciously to revenue generating enterprises. Thank you very much. That is my little contribution, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Garba.
Thank you very much, the Senate President. My name is Garba Musa Maidoki, representing Kebbi South Senatorial District. Mr. President, I've listened attentively to all the discussions, but I would like to observe, Mr. President, that majority of the people that were allowed to discuss these issues were members of the Finance Committee. These people had opportunity to make their input in this document. And some of us that were not there when this document was generated ought to have been listened to, because these people have sat down and they have produced a report which we are reviewing today. So it's our turn to interrogate this report and then make our own input, because we didn't have the opportunity to do it at the committee level. Secondly, Mr. President, I would like to observe that the current public employees, both public and private sector, are only 7% of the Nigerian population. And if we are only 7% of the Nigerian population and consuming 85% of the Nigerian resources and leaving 15% to the generality of Nigeria, I think something is wrong with our budget system, and I think it needs to be corrected. Leaving 15% for capital expenditure and taking 85% as recurrent expenditure for payment of our own services, I think is not good. Secondly, sir, I've listened to the argument. Today, the current exchange rate was 1,700. And if we rely on data that were generated to do our budget, I cannot see any reason why the budget is predicated at 1,400. We need to put our budget back at what is current today at 1,700, and we hope that next year it will fall to 1,400. That is only hope, but the reality today is the budget, the dollar today is 1,700 at the official exchange rate. So we need to correct that exchange rate so that if we work towards bringing the exchange rate down to 1,400. And I also like to make a comment to the chairman of the Finance Committee. We have already approved 2.2 billion as debt. If we had already approved $2.2 billion as borrowing, I cannot see why it is not stated in the MTF. I cannot see any reason why it was not stated, because these are only projections. If we do not get the money eventually, then we know where the shortfall comes from, and then we can clearly stated that because the money didn't come, that is why the budget was not met. But if we continue to look at things that clearly we saw where the future is, and we look away because we just conjure that whatever is the excess, it will be transferred to domestic debt payment. That is not budgeting. We need to be able to say, this is the budget today, and if we achieve 1,400, balance of 300 naira, which amount to this, will be transferred to pay domestic debt. If we don't do that, I think we are meeting the whole essence of the budget. And thirdly, Mr. President, it's not the naira as it is constituted today has no value. The value is more worth than weight. Today, I went to the market to buy vegetables that I used to buy for 50 naira. Today, it costs 1,500 naira. So it's only a matter of figures, but the value, the worthiness of the naira is not there. I believe if we redenominate the naira so that the big figures will be dropped out, and instead of buying vegetables for one soup at 1,500, if we remove the zero, it will at least be at 150 naira. This will strengthen the naira, but the way we carry big amount of money, if we are going out, you need to take 500,000 naira. Your whole bag is full. the whole bag you are carrying is full with 500,000 naira. If it is 500 naira denomination or less than that, I think we are just wasting time if we do not look at the issue of naira denomination, so that you can carry very little money in your bag or in your pocket, and you can go to the market and buy worthwhile value. Otherwise, I think we are only making jest of this naira denomination. The naira in circulation today, with your own money, you go to the bank today, you are looking for 500,000, you cannot get. You'll be given 25,000 or 50,000. What will 25,000 buy? What will 50,000 buy for a family? So I think I strongly believe that if we do not redenominate the naira, the value we are talking will not be able to take our money to buy essential services, because the naira is not even available in the bank. Thank you very much, Senate President.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Wadada, that will be the final submission.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I remain Senator Ahmed Wadada Aliyu Sarkin Yakin Kefi. I represent Nasarawa West Senatorial District. Let me first of all start by commending the chairman and members of the Senate Committee on Finance and National Planning for this wonderful document that is well worked on. But permit me to say that if one or two things that have been lingering in the finances of the government are rightly and correctly put in place, this document would have been way richer than what it is. Because the government would have so much more than what is being generated today for budgeting against 2025. What I'm trying to say here is, we take like Central Bank of Nigeria. Central Bank of Nigeria, because of the ambiguous or controversial ways and means of 30 trillion as the records have, that ways and means, what happened was that Central Bank took from borrower and gave to borrower. Central Bank at that time, in its books, did not have the liquidity to have borrowed that to the government. So what it did was to debit Consolidated Revenue Funds account and credited the TSA. Consolidated Revenue Funds account belongs to the government. The TSA also belongs to the government. And having done that, it went ahead to securitize the instruments with debt management. And because that instrument has been securitized, as I stand here today, Central Bank from then to now charges Consolidated Revenue Funds with the amount of 650 billion every month. There has been communications between the Public Accounts Committee and Central Bank of Nigeria. The finance team under the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation had met and looked at the document or the communication from the Committee on Public Accounts and drew the attention of Central Bank to do the needful. All efforts to get Central Bank to do this hasn't been in place. You can imagine if the 650 billion, which now has accumulated to over 6 trillion, were to be free for this committee to incorporate it or integrate it into MTEF, that means more money for the government. That is one aspect. The other aspect is Federal Inland Revenue Service. In collaboration with NNPCL, petroleum profit tax for a number of years now having been remitted to the right quarters. The committee had written both NNPC and Federal Inland Revenue Service. Federal Inland Revenue Service responded. My distinguished colleagues, this is extremely very important, please. Federal Inland Revenue Service responded with documents that have been typexed and handwritten, acclaimed to be from JP Morgan. This is extremely unacceptable, and all efforts for the needful to be done haven't been achieved. We've done all efforts. That is why Senator Abdul Ningi said what he said. And on Port Harcourt Refinery, our colleagues were there. They saw what they saw. But the question I have, from the day NNPC said Port Harcourt Refinery has commenced operation, how many trucks have been able to lift products from Port Harcourt Refinery? Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, technically I have this for this Senate to know about Port Harcourt Refinery. And unless and until NNPCL answers this question, we will not be bamboozled into commending or rush into commending NNPC on Port Harcourt Refinery. Mr. President, sir, distinguished colleagues, listen to this technicality. A 60-kilometer distribution pipeline from Boni Terminal to PH1, that is Port Harcourt 1, that should supply crude oil to the refinery is not operational because of the leaks and vandalizations. So if you have been barging crude in 5K barrels, barges, and evidence does not suggest there is actual supplies of feedstock, where are you delivering the crude to for the frivolous claim of a refinery? Unless, and of course, the OFSEC Run 94 that is dross and heavy in sulfur landed at Okirika Jetty and was sent to Port Harcourt 1 for curing with naphtha condensates. This is the time for the National Assembly leadership on downstream to step in and compel the NMDPRA and Standard Organization of Nigeria to organize a third-party Robin Roundtable for verification of the octane rating and sulfur level of the so-called products trucked out to ensure it complies with AFRI 5 framework. So technically, what obtains in
just a minute. We just finished commending the government. We applauded the president. We applauded NMPC. Now you are
commending the government.
You are putting a spanner.
No, I'm not putting a spanner.
But what I'm saying, what you are saying,
yes,
is that there's no evidence of crude supply to the refinery. So how could they have refined product that they never received? You are also saying that we should go ahead to investigate whether indeed there is actually production going on there. I think these are very serious. Senator Ningi, these are very serious allegations and serious observations. So I would like the chairman, petroleum upstream,
midstream and downstream should investigate this.
Midstream and chairman
gas. No, okay, no midstream here.
Chairman gas, downstream, and chairman gas. I think we must look into this, or maybe after we are through with the MTEP, we rediscuss it in closed session in case we have to set up ad hoc committee to immediately move to Port Harcourt.
It's very
and
important.
come back and report to the Senate, because some of the things you are saying are
Okay,
worrisome.
rule me now.
But you have 10 seconds to conclude.
Mr. President, let me not be misunderstood. There is nothing wrong in commending the government for Port Harcourt to be back on the stream. But Port Harcourt being back on the stream, what obtains? Is A standing for A and B standing for B? It is the technicality now we're talking about, so that we don't run for 1 month, 2 months, and then stories come up. But this is an information that I've given to the Senate for the Senate to work on. Verify it so that we move on. We shouldn't be, the tantalization is okay, it's enough. We must stand as representatives of the people, because whatever we do here, in as much as it does not provide the needed and required succor to the citizenry, it translates to nothing. So let the needful be done. Committee on Banking and Currency should look at this ways and means. So far, Central Bank has charged over 6 trillion on the interest on securitized instrument with debt management. The records are there. There are communications so far, correspondences between Public Accounts Committee and Central Bank of Nigeria. And of course, my Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, everybody here knows that.
You know our rules. These issues are not for just mere statement. Put something down and submit the report to the Senate for deliberation. Because if you make just a verbal accusation, you'll be talking like people in social media. And so please, let's have your report on this. So
Mr. President,
we can take it up. And
Mr. President, do not, with due respect, link me to social media when I'm talking serious issues like this.
No, I said your issues are so serious that they should not be just verbal. Did you hear what I said? I said the issues are so serious that it's not good for them to be verbal. Bring a substantive report or motion on it so that the Senate can take an appropriate decision. And then even mandate the committees on public account and the other relevant committees to go and look into the issues you've raised. For instance, the chairman of the Committee on Banking, and Senator Abiru, I don't know what I said. So we should be able to know if up to 6 trillion has been paid by the CBN as interest on a securitization or otherwise. So there are serious allegations that should not come verbally. They should come in writing, so that CBN will also have the opportunities to defend itself. But outside that,
Thank you very much. But if you have not forgotten, I have sent a document to your office on petroleum profit tax. This petroleum profit tax and what transpired between NNPC and Federal Inland Revenue Service, I sent a document to you more than 3 months ago. Nothing happened.
Okay, so Chairman, public account, please bring a motion on it. I have gone through your document, and it's not personal. It's for the Senate to take a decision. So bring a motion on it. Distinguished colleagues, let us look at the recommendations so that we can close.
Karimi.
The recommendation 1, the projected oil benchmark price or prices are USD $75 for 2025, USD 76.2 for 2026, and USD 75.3 for 2027 per barrel, respectively. Those in support of recommendation 1 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those in support of recommendations 2, 3, 4, and 5 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendations 6 to 10.
Amendment.
Which
Amendment.
Which one?
Recommendation 6.
6. Yes.
sir.
Senator Abiru.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Adetokunbo Abiru, and I represent Lagos East Senatorial District. I wish to propose, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, that in view of the concerns raised about the conservative nature of the exchange rate at 1,400 to the dollar for the upcoming fiscal year 2025, and as proposed, as suggested, that all of the, I will take this as proposed, but to amend that any excess above this exchange rate should be used to wind down the deficit of the country. I so propose, Mr. President.
Yes. Yeah, seconding. Senator Alero.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mohammed Adamu Alero, my name. I rise to second the motion for the amendment proposed by my colleague, Senator Michaela Abiru Okumbo.
A further amendment? But let me put the question first. Those in support of Senator Michaela, am I right? Michaela Abiru's amendment of recommendation 6, that the projected exchange rate, which stands at 1,400 for the 3 years, be approved, subject, however, to review in early 2005, according to monetary and fiscal policies, with a proviso that any overflow be used to service the existing debts in the country. Be used to service the existing deficits, right? That's your proviso. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. Dismissed Senator Abiru has amended recommendation 6 to add a proviso that anything above 1,400 be used for debt servicing. Those in support of this amendment say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 7. Amendment, yes.
In my contribution earlier, I mentioned my observation on item 4, where the Committee on National Planning and Economic Affairs, because they are talking about the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, and we are the committee that oversees that commission. So we should be involved in investigating the report that that committee has made regarding the NMPC's holding on the monies that are due to the Federation account.
Okay, so amend it the way you want it.
So I would say that the committees on finance, petroleum upstream and petroleum downstream, and national planning and economic affairs are tasked to investigate.
Yes.
So it's just to add the Committee on National Planning and Economic Affairs.
Just the addition?
Yes, sir.
Any seconder? Yes, Senator Olale.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I write to second the motion moved that the Committee on National Planning be added to committee to investigate the allegation. I so second.
Yes, on item 4, a motion has been moved by distinguished Senator Yahya, our leader, and seconded by another leader, Senator Larry, that the Committee on National Planning be added amongst those to investigate the allegations from Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Those in support of the Section 4 as amended say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Secretariat, the clerk, please note.
I mean, the amendment, Mr. President.
Amendment of which section?
On the same, my name is Osita Izuna, so I represent Imo West. On the same recommendation 4, I want to add that the Committee on Gas, because if you have Committee on Petroleum Upstream, Committee on Petroleum Downstream, we should also add Committee on Gas.
Which
Prayer 4, recommendation 4.
The same recommendation 4?
4, yeah, the same 4.
Any seconder? Yes, Senator Ome.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Victor Ome. I rise to second the motion that the Senate Committee on Gas be added to the committees on finance, petroleum upstream, and petroleum downstream to investigate reports from the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Responsibility Commission, alleging that the NNPC withheld 8.4 trillion as claimed subsidies for petrol. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the Section 4 is further amended to add the Committee on Gas, Senate Committee on Gas, amongst the committees on petroleum, on finance, petroleum upstream, petroleum downstream, and national planning to investigate the allegation from Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission on the 8.4 trillion claimed by the NNPC as petroleum subsidy. Those in support of the addition of the Committee on Gas say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So the Clerk of the Senate, please note. Recommendation 7. Inflation rates projection 15.7, 14.2, 10.4, or 10.04, 2025, 2026, 2027. Those in support of the recommendation 7 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 8. Those in support of recommendation 8 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 9, 10, 11, 12. Those in support of the 4 recommendations say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 13. Those in support of recommendation 13, 14, 15 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Let me thank Distinguished colleagues, having accepted, amended, and accepted the recommendations from our committees on finance, national planning, the MTF FSP is approved as amended. So my final question will be, those in support that the entirety of the MTF FSP as amended, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. So the Chairman, Committee on Finance, Chairman, Committee on National Planning, and all the members of the two committees and all those who took part in the exercise, we want to commend you for the in-depth analysis and the good job done in this document. And accordingly, the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has now passed the 2025 to 2027 medium-term expenditure framework, MTF, and fiscal strategy paper for implementation by the federal government of Nigeria. Thank you for a good job done. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished senators, the second order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Nigerian Army on the screening of Lieutenant General Olufemi Olatunbosun Oluyede for appointment as Chief of Army Staff. Mr. President, you may wish to invite most distinguished Senator Yar'Adua Abdul Aziz Musa, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report.
Distinguished Senator Yar'Adua.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Abdulaziz Musa Yar'Adua, representing Katsina Central. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I rise to move.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to move that the report on the screening of the nomination of Lieutenant General Olufemi Olatunbosun Oluyede for appointment as the Chief of Army Staff be accepted by this chamber. I so move, Mr. President.
Yes. Senator Okobondu.
Thank you, Mr. President. My dear colleagues, I rise to second the motion ably moved by Senator Abdulaziz Yar'Adua, Chairman Army, that the report of screening of the nomination of Lieutenant General Oluyede for appointment as the Chief of Army Staff be submitted. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in support that the report on the training and clearance of the new Chief of Army Staff be submitted for consideration. Say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So you may proceed to lay your report.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You come with us now. You come with us once you talk and I talk. Yeah, proceed to summarize your report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, at its plenary sitting of Tuesday, 26 November 2024, considered the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federation, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, on the confirmation of nomination of Lieutenant General Olufemi Olatubosun Oluyede for appointment as Chief of Army Staff and referred same to the committee for further legislative action. Mr. President, permit me to summarize the CV of the nominee, Lieutenant General Olufemi Olatubosun Oluyede. Lieutenant General Olufemi Olatubosun Oluyede was born on 21st June 1968 in Ikere, Ekiti local government area of Ekiti State. He was granted regular combatant commission into the Nigerian Army as a member of the 39th regular course of the Nigerian Defense Academy on 19 September 1992 as a second lieutenant with seniority on the rank effective 12 September 1987. He is of the Infantry Corps and has attended several courses during the course of his career. These courses include the Young Officers Course, Infantry, Regimental Signal Officers Course, Junior Staff Course, Senior Staff Course. Mr. President, we attended the same Senior Staff Course with this nominee. He has also attended the Military Commanding Officers Course, Strategic Leadership Course, and Senior Executive Course at the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. Lieutenant General Oluyede holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Economics. The senior officer has held several appointments cutting across command, staff, instructional, and operational deployments. These include platoon commander and adjutant at 65 Battalion, company commander at 177 Guards Battalion, and later staff officer at the Guards Brigade headquarters. The senior officer has served at the Nigerian Defense Academy as an instructor and later as the senior instructor of the Army Wing. He also served at the headquarters Joint Task Force, Operation Restore Hope, holding different appointments. General Oluyede has participated in several operations, among which include the Economic Community of West African States Monitoring Group known as ECOMOG, Operation Harmony 4 in Bakassi, Operation Lafia Dole, and Operation Hadinkai. The erudite senior officer established a distinct reputation of excellence in operational prowess, especially in the Northeast Theater of Operations, where he commanded 27 Task Force Brigade. His gallantry as the brigade commander saw him elevated to the appointment of sector commander. Headquarters Sector 2, Operation Hadinkai, where he commanded several successful operations that neutralized some key Boko Haram terrorist commanders and several foot soldiers. Lieutenant General Oliode's meritorious service to Nigeria and his devotion to duty in various theaters of operation within and outside the country foreshadowed his present appointment as the Acting Chief of Army Staff. In recognition of his exceptional contributions, he has been conferred with several military honors and medals, including the Forces Service Star, Meritorious Service Star, Distinguished Service Star, and Grand Service Star. His exemplary instructional competence earned him the Training Support Medal, while his tactical skills and command capabilities earned him the Field Commander Medal, Field Command Medal of Honor, and General Operations Medal, and the ECOWAS Monitoring Group Medal. Lieutenant General Oliode also earned the Corps Medal of Honor and he was a proud recipient of the coveted Chief of Army Staff Commendation Award for Professional Excellence. In screening the nominee, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, the committee interviewed the nominee in relation of his previous experiences and services. The committee was impressed by the high level of understanding, achievements, and excellence stated in the citation of the nominee. Our observations are as follows: that the nomination of the nominee is in line with Section 217, subsection 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, and in accordance with the provision of Section 18, subsection 1 of the Armed Forces Act, Cap 820, Law of the Federation of Nigeria 2004. The nominee possesses the required competence, experience, and educational qualification to be conferred as the Chief of Army Staff. That the nominee has been cleared by the Department of the State Services. The nominee also went through the correct process of promotion till date that qualified him to be in the position of the Chief of Army Staff. The committee also did not receive any petition against the nominee's confirmation as Chief of Army Staff. Recommendation of the committee. The Senate Committee on Nigerian Army, having diligently and meticulously conducted the screening of the nominee according to the Constitution, and being satisfied with his conduct, competence, experience, and educational qualification, hereby recommend to the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as follows: that Lieutenant General Olufemi Olatubosun Oluyede be confirmed as the Chief of Army Staff, having successfully undergone the screening process of this committee. In conclusion, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, on behalf of the Senate Committee on Nigerian Army, I wish to sincerely appreciate the leadership of the Senate for the opportunity given to the committee to take on this national assignment. I so submit, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Lalong.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, once again, Simon Lalong representing Plateau South. Mr. President, first, let me once again start with sympathizing with Nigerian Armed Forces for the loss of a very brilliant Chief of Army Staff a few weeks ago. In his place was this officer again. Mr. President, we are not only seeing from the CV, but to me, a layman, I also see weight. It's evidence of weight. When I say evidence of weight, even looking at the person with his structure, you know that the armed forces is equipped with that kind of structure. So I stand to second this confirmation with the resume, very rich resume. He has held almost every command position in the army and with all the accolades. So I also stand to also support that with accelerated speed, he be confirmed as the Chief of Army Staff. Thank you, sir.
No opposition. Leader, will you move that we go into committee of the whole to continue the process of approving and confirming the new Chief of Army
Mr.
Staff?
President, very distinguished colleagues, I rise to move that the Senate resolve to a committee of the whole for us to further consider the report. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to support the motion that the Senate resolves into the Committee of the Whole to further consider the report of the Committee on Army. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that this August Assembly do revert into Committee of the Whole to consider the report on the screening of the Acting Chief of Army Staff. Those in support of the motion have moved and seconded say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, will the Senate approve the nomination of Lieutenant General Olufemi Olatu Bosun Oruyede for appointment as Chief of Army Staff? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The appointment of Lieutenant General Olufemi Olatubosun Oluyede as Chief of Army Staff is hereby approved. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, sitting as chair, very distinguished colleagues, I rise to move that the Senate reverts back to plenary to enable the chairman report progress. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, sitting as chair, my distinguished colleagues, I second the motion that the Senate reverts to plenary to enable the chair to render report. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that the Senate reverts to plenary to enable the chair report progress. Those in support of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. We revert to plenary to report progress. Distinguished colleagues, the Senate, in the Committee of the Whole, considered the report of the Committee on Nigerian Army, the Senate Committee on Nigerian Army, on the screening of Mr. President's nominee for appointment as Chief of Army Staff and approved the nomination of Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluide as Chief of Army Staff. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Distinguished colleagues, will the Senate confirm the nomination of Lieutenant General Olufemi Olatunbosun Oluide for appointment as Chief of Army Staff? Those in support of the confirmation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Lieutenant General Olufemi Olatunbosun Oluide is hereby confirmed as Chief of Army Staff. Let me thank distinguished Senator Yaradua, Chairman of the Committee on the Army, and all the members of that committee, and all distinguished senators for their contributions, and wish the new Chief of Army Staff joy, successes, and progress. And do hope and pray that through this appointment, insecurity will be abated or minimized to the barest minimum, and Nigeria shall know peace. The administration of President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu will succeed in bringing the insurgents ravaging many parts of Borno and other parts of northern Nigeria, including banditry, to an end. So I want to congratulate the newly confirmed nominee and wish him the best of luck in his appointment. And may the soul of our departed brother, the former Chief of Army Staff, Lagbaja, rest in perfect peace. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the third order of the day is the presentation and adoption of Conference Committee report on the South-South Development Commission Establishment Bill 2024-358. Distinguished senators will recall that the Senate and the House of Representatives passed different versions of the South-South Development Commission Establishment Bill 2024. The Conference Committee of both houses have met and harmonized the differences in accordance with Senate Standing Order 86. Mr. President, with your permission, I move the motion for the Senate to, at this point, invite the chairman of the conference committee, distinguished Senator Shehu Kaka, distinguished Senator Mohammed Tahir Mangunu to lay the report for adoption. I so move, Mr. President.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I support the motion that the report of the Conference Committee on the South-South Commission be laid and considered by the Senate. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that this August Assembly do receive the report of the Conference Committee on the South-South Development Commission. Those in support of this motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished Senator Mangunu, you may proceed.
Distinguished President of the Senate, distinguished senators, my name is Mohammed Tahir Manguno. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. May I move that the Senate do receive and adopt the Conference Committee report on the South-South Development Commission Establishment Bill 2024 SB 358. I so move.
Distinguished Senator Asuku Agbeyan may wish to second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Asuko Ipeyong, Senator representing Cross River South. Distinguished colleague, I rise to second the motion as ably read by Senator Mongono. Thank you, sir.
Distinguished colleagues, those in support of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished Senator Mangunu, you may move to present your report.
President, distinguished senators, I remain Mohammed Tahir Monguno. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. The genesis behind the formation of the conference committee is because the Senate version and the House version are diametrically opposed to each other. And because of that, based on our rules, when we have such differences, conference committee will be set up with a view to ironing out the gray areas with a view to arriving at a consensus. Committee was set up, we are able to sit as a committee, and then having perused through the two versions, the two committees unanimously, without a single voice of dissent, with unanimity, adopted the Senate version in total. And therefore, the conference committee hereby recommends for adoption and approval of the harmonized version of the bill as follows: that the Senate do consider and approve the conference committee report on the South-South Development Commission Establishment Bill 2024 as recommended. And then in conclusion, we thank the Senate for reposing the confidence on myself and members of my committee to discharge this job. And we remain grateful and will continue to look forward for such assignment with a view to contributing our widow's mite towards nation building. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Mangunu, I must thank you and members of the conference committee for continuing to serve your nation well. And particularly the fact that this has not taken more than 6 weeks to come. It shows the urgency needed in terms of development of the various geopolitical zones of the country. So I'll put the question. Will the Senate adopt and confirm the conference committee report on the South-South Development Commission Establishment Bill 2024. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The conference report on the South-South Development Commission Establishment Bill 2024 is hereby adopted. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the presentation and adoption of the Conference Committee report on the North Central Development Commission Establishment Bill 2024, SB 140. Distinguished senators will recall that the Senate and the House of Representatives passed different versions of the North Central Development Commission Establishment Bill 2024. The Conference Committee of both houses have met and harmonized the differences in accordance with Senate Standing Order 86.
I don't have it.
Mr. President, with your permission, I move the motion for the Senate to invite distinguished Senator Kaka Shehu Lawal, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, for the presentation and subsequent adoption of the conference report. Mr. President, I so move.
The Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I support the motion that the Senate do receive and consider for approval the conference report on the North Central Development Commission Establishment Bill 2024. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that the Senate do receive and adopt the conference report on the establishment of the Northeast on the North Central Development Commission. Those in support of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished Senator Kaka.
Thank you, Mr. President, and my highly respected colleagues. My name is Kaka Shehu Lawan. I represent the good people of Borno Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to move that the Senate do receive and adopt the Conference Committee report on the establishment of the North Central Development Commission. I so move, sir.
Distinguished Senator Taito Zam.
Your Excellency, I write to second the motion as eloquently moved by my brother, Senator Kaka. I so support. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded. Those in support of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished Senator Kaka, you may proceed to lay your report.
It's okay. No problem. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, in summarizing this bill, the conference committee members of both chambers met and discussed that out of the 28 clauses of both versions of the bill passed by the Senate and House of Representatives respectively, Clause 1 of the House of Representatives version was adopted, while Clauses 2 and 4 of the Senate versions was considered and adopted. Clause 1 of the House of Representatives clearly states that the headquarters of the North Central Development Commission be sited in Lafia, Nasarawa State, while Clause 2 and 4 of the Senate version was adopted to the effect that the Senate, which provides a one person from each state that comprise of the North Central, be a member, and then the office of the chairman of the commission should be rotated amongst the member states of the commission. Mr. President, that clause 4 of the Senate version should be adopted and clause 2 accordingly. In conclusion, we wish to thank the Senate and the entire leadership for giving us the opportunity to serve in that capacity. Finally, I move that the Senate do receive and adopt the conference committee on the North Central Development Commission. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. I so move.
Senator Lalong.
Thank you, Mr. President. Samuel along Plateau South. I rise to also support the motion for the North Central Development Commission as presented by my very good friend, distinguished Senator Kaka. I was already trying to make a small observation, but my leader is here, the minority chief whip, the minority whip. I will, for now, agree to the approval of the North Central because it is even long overdue. We're anxiously waiting for the North Central Development Commission. So I support the motion.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that this August Assembly do receive the conference report on the North Central Development Commission Bill 2024. Those in support that this report as presented be received by this August Assembly say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Now, let me put the question. Will the Senate adopt the conference committee report as presented on the North Central Development Commission Establishment Bill 2024, particularly with headquarters at Lafia, Nasarawa State? Those in support of this conference committee report as presented say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The conference report on the North Central Development Commission Establishment Bill 2024 is hereby adopted. Senator Kaka, I must thank you and members of your conference committee for the speedy job done to bring development to North Central and by implication to other parts of the nation. Most of these geopolitical zones are now going to be the focal point of federal government intervention in many zones in the country. And this will, of course, add impetus to the development of the states, because the states will concentrate on the development through state allocations, and the federal government will do its best to extend funding to these geopolitical zones And then, of course, by implication, development will come to all parts of Nigeria. Maybe in future, we may even suggest that most of these federal roads, or so-called federal roads, be handled by most of these zonal development agencies, so that the repairs and all that, since FEMA does not seem to have a total grip of the work across Nigeria, and many areas are very much in deplorable state. And they can also be encouraged to do geopolitical zoning in terms of agriculture, so that we take areas of comparative advantages, like the South-South. Somebody can go into fishing, because we have all that it takes to excel in that area. In the Northwest, they can go into millets and grains production, and even tomato production. They have the land, they have everything. Like the North Central, yes, North Central. If you look at the development of yams and certain crops, particularly corn, oranges, and others, you can even have a multiply effect in terms of production of fruits and all that. So I think these are things that we will in due course discuss. And then you'll come to see that the vision of the present National Assembly is actually a vision that will bring development closer to the grassroots of Nigerians. So I thank you for this, and I congratulate all the indigenes of North Central for the establishment of this North Central Development Commission Bill 2024, praying that Mr. President will assent it into an act of parliament as soon as possible for development to continue. Thank you for your contributions. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fifth order of the day is the presentation and adoption of the Conference Committee report on the National Anti-Doping Bill 2024, SB 455. Distinguished senators will recall that the Senate and the House of Representatives passed different versions of the National Anti-Doping Bill 2024. The Conference Committee of both houses have met and harmonized the differences in accordance with Senate Standing Order 86. Mr. President, with your permission, I move the motion for the Senate to receive, consider, and adopt the conference report to be led by distinguished Senator Kawu Sumaila. I so move, Mr. President.
The minority leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I support the motion that the conference report on the National Anti-Doping Bill 2024 be laid and adopted. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded. Those in support of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate, time.
Mr. President, my dear and respected colleagues,
yes.
I am Suleiman Abdurrahman Kau Sumaila, Kano South. Mr. President, may I leave to come and lead the report of the Conference Committee of the National Anti-Doping Bill 2024 conference's report. May
Yes. Distinguished Senator Joel Onawakwo.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Joel Onawakwo Thomas. I represent the good people of Delta South Nigeria District. And here, for the motion moved by my own brother that the National Anti-Doping Bill for 2024 be received as moved. Hereby seconded. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that the National Anti-Doping Bill 2024 Conference Report be presented and received by this August Assembly. Those in support of the motion as moved and seconded say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Kawu, you may proceed to lay the report. Yes, distinguished Senator Kawu, you want to, is there anything you want to add or summarize?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, it is a report of the Conference Committee on the National Anti-Doping Bills 2024. If we may recall that the National Anti-Doping Bill 2024 was passed by the Senate and the House of Representatives with some differences. In consequence, therefore, the Conference Committee was constituted in the Senate and in the House of Representatives to reconcile the area of differences that appeared in the two versions of the bill. The mandate of the Conference Committee, therefore, was to harmonize the area of differences that was observed in the two versions of the bill as passed by the two chambers and make appropriate recommendation for approval by both houses of the National Assembly. The membership of the Conference Committee is attached in the report. The Conference Committee met on Monday, 14th October 2024 and deliberated on the two versions of the bill passed by both chambers, Senate and the House of Representatives of the National Assembly. The members of the committee observed differences in 6 clauses, the schedule and the explanatory memorandum of the bill passed by the two chambers and harmonized same as highlighted in the following table attached. The Conference Committee recommended the recommendation hereby, the Conference Committee hereby recommends for adoption and approval of the harmonized version of the bills as follows. That the House do consider and approve the Conference Committee reports on the National Anti-Doping Bill 2024 as recommended. Mr. President, my dear respected colleagues, on behalf of the members of the Conference Committee, we wish to thank the National Assembly, more particularly the Senate, for the opportunity given to members of this committee to resolve area of differences in the bill. I so submit, Mr. President. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, will the Senate adopt the Conference Committee report on the National Anti-Doping Bill 2024? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The The National Anti-Doping Bill 2024 conference report is hereby adopted. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, in view of the various committee meetings slated for this afternoon and the other legislative activities of distinguished colleagues, I rise to move that we stand down the other items on the order paper till another legislative day to enable us adjourn plenary till tomorrow, being Wednesday, the 4th day of December 2024 at 11 a.m. I so move, Mr. President.
The Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I support the motion moved by the Leader of the Senate that the Senate suspends all other items on the order paper and adjourn to tomorrow, Wednesday 4th at 11 a.m. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motions have been moved and seconded that one, we suspend other items on the order paper and proceed to adjourn to tomorrow, the 4th day of December 2024. Those in support of the motions as moved and seconded say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Accordingly, the Senate is hereby adjourned to the 4th day of December 2024 at 11 a.m. prompt.